Well, thank you so much for the warm welcome, and I'm really thrilled to be here today with some brilliant publishers from across Europe who are. I'm excited to hear them share a little bit more about the innovations that they're really driving through their business with Programmatic. So, to introduce my panelists, I'd like to take each of them very briefly in order we've got on the slides here, just to introduce themselves, tell me a little bit about their business and how you fit in your market. And Nadifi, you go first.
Okay, thanks so much, Cadi. Hi, everyone. Really happy to be with you guys, and thanks really from the Beeswax team. Thanks for the opportunity for us, TF1, to talk about about all the stuff that we are doing around Programmatic. So I'm going to introduce myself. So I'm head of the digital sales team at TF1. In a nutshell, TF1 is the biggest broadcaster in France, even in terms of audience and in terms of revenue as well. And from a digital perspective as well, our digital assets are as well the most powerful, especially in terms of audience. At TF1, again, in a nutshell, the most important thing around our strategy is conversions. So as a broadcaster, let's say our objective in the next couple of years is to have this conversion between between TV and our digital assets. And in a simple word, we really want to see TV not as television but as total video. So this is really the heart and our core strategy in the next couple of years.
Brilliant, and thank you so much for the introduction. We're thrilled to have you here. Ilhan, I think this is a really nice segue for you to introduce yourself and ShowHeroes.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, guys. And hi, Cadi. Yeah, thanks, Beeswax, as Anna just said. Nice opportunity over here. Good organization so far. Who am I? Briefly introduction on me. I'm Ilhan, CEO and founder of ShowHeroes. With ShowHeroes, I mean, we are Europe's leading independent provider of video solutions for digital publishers and for advertisers alike. So what that means is that publishers with ShowHeroes, they can boost their video views, they can increase, just in line with that, the time spent on their websites, on their pages, and of course they can maximize, they can optimize their yield, right? And for advertisers, on the other hand, it means just more access to new unique users and also to brand safe content that is delivered whenever and wherever relevant through semantic targeting, and that eventually is catering for best completion rates. And this is in a nutshell what ShowHeroes does. And we are doing this for almost 4 years now. We are a German-based company, so our headquarters are in Germany, but we are also active all across Europe, in Austria, Switzerland, the Netherlands, and France, and currently also a little bit in the UK. So we're starting that business. And the company has more or less about 100 employees these days. We have more than 12 offices we are operating in and within. And what we basically do is we provide publishers, as I said, with semantic matching, with video content, and we produce, we adapt, we optimize content, and that allows us to increase their video real estate, if you will, and eventually their yield. And that's basically where we fit in every market we are operating in these days, because you have a scarcity if it comes to like in-stream premium video content almost everywhere. And if you are looking out for solutions, aside from Google, from Facebook, from those giants, then ShowHeroes is a very good alternative for you, whether you be a publisher or an advertiser.
Ilhan, thank you, and glad to have you on the panel. Alex, I think again it's a great segue into what you do over at Dennis. Please Take it away.
Thanks, Cadi. Just to echo, firstly, the other panelists, say thank you to the Beeswax team for inviting us on and giving us an opportunity to talk about some of the things that we're doing at the moment. So I'm Alex Kirby. I head up the Programmatic and Audience Data team for Dennis Publishing. Dennis Publishing is a multi-brand print and digital publisher, global publisher. So we've got many UK brands and also US brands. We work in 4 key verticals, which are automotive, technology, current affairs and lifestyle. So really, really big portfolio, which means that we've got a load of fantastic brands to get data from and do some really interesting things with Programmatic. We also have a really thriving e-commerce business, as well as like branching out into demand generation. And, you know, I'm going to talk about some of the things that we're doing in our subscriptions teams as well at the moment, because everything's kind of coming together in a really exciting way.
I mean, it is a really exciting time for our industry, right? We're seeing a huge amount of innovation and change. So I'd really like to cover as our first topic, just sort of how much the industry has changed over the last 5 years. I wonder, I don't know, even know who I should have planned who to call on first for this one. Alex, you had the mic. I'd love to know, you know, what biggest change you've seen in the industry for the last 5 years. And that's I'm going to call on you next.
Sure.
Okay.
I've actually been at Dennis for about 9.5 years, which is a very long time, but it's really enabled me to kind of see the way that things have changed for quite a while. So I've definitely found that everything has got a lot more fragmented and a lot more complicated. I think our industry was always a little bit overcomplicated anyway, but things have definitely seemed to really diverge when we should have really been trying to kind of standardize a lot more. What that's meant realistically is we've had a lot more publisher collaboration. I remember when I started out in this industry probably about 12, 13 years ago now, publishers wouldn't talk to each other. You know, we were each other's competitors. And that's something that's been probably one of the biggest shifts that I've seen over time, is the way that publishers are willing to embrace their common challenges and kind of recognize that we are stronger together. You know, we're all actually facing a lot of the same issues. So that's quite an exciting time. You know, getting us all to agree is sometimes not the easiest thing. But, you know, the actual fact that you've got, you know, competitors sitting at the table, and there's some fantastic examples of alliances and, you know, publishers really kind of coming together to solve common problems, which I think is quite exciting.
That's an amazing takeaway, and like you say, a real transformation over the last 5 to 10 years. And that's from your perspective, from the French view. What's been the biggest shift in the industry for you?
Okay, so I'm gonna take it like from a TF1 perspective. So really in the last 5 years and more than that, at TF1, the motto was advanced TV. So it was really something critical in TF1 strategy in terms of ad solution. So in advanced TV, we have like five pillars. The first one was the fact that TF1 now can really own a real OTT and video on-demand properties. So it was really the first pillar of its advanced TV strategy. Which is now really a huge success. The second pillar is what we call generally connected TV, but especially in France we call it IPTV. So it's really the fact that you can access to our VOD and replay content throughout set-top boxes, because in France is really a specific market when it comes to connected TV. So you need to know that more than 55% of the household access to our digital properties when it comes to TV through set-top boxes. So it's really something which is huge for us. It's around 50% to 60% of our audiences and our inventories when it comes to our digital properties. The third pillar was the live and the second screen, which is the ability for users to watch TV live, but throughout OTT devices. and when we say OTT devices, it's desktop, mobile, and tablet. And when we talk about live and second stream, we talk about ad stitching capabilities, which is something really important in our offering in our ad solution. So this was like the three first pillars, and the next couple of pillars that we are trying to tackle. So the first one that we tackle is the programmatic linear TV, which is now a reality in our offering since 2 or 3 months. So it's the fourth pillar of our advanced TV strategy, and it's really something which is strategic.
I mean, it's a huge advantage from a automation perspective.
Absolutely.
Really, yes.
Definitely. So for us, you know, as you know, as we mentioned earlier, programmatic at TF1 is really now everywhere. Programmatic was not something real when it comes to linear TV, and now, since 2 months or 3 months, linear TV. So you can buy linear TV through a DSP. So it's really a kind of revolution at TF1. It's a kind of revolution in the French market when it comes to linear TV. And the final pillar we need to tackle, it's addressable TV in France. So it's not a reality yet, but it will be a reality in the next couple of months because it's a matter of regulation. So we're waiting from the green light coming from the regulation to unleash our addressable TV capabilities. And I think that we will start with the most valuable product in the next couple of months once the regulation is okay with it. So this is really the heart of our ad strategy, so advanced TV, and we are about to really achieve and fulfill all the steps to make it really happen.
I mean, that's a huge amount of progress, really, when you consider 5 years to be actually a fairly condensed amount of time. And Ilhan, you've also kind of 5 years ago, ShowHeroes was just an idea for you, I guess. What's been the biggest transformation that you've seen?
5 years ago, it wasn't even an idea, to be honest. But yeah, I guess that's just proving your point more, right? Well, I mean, of course, I echo what Anas and what Alex said to a certain extent. I mean, there are those meta industry trends that none of us can deny. And of course, we don't want them to be denied, which of course is programmatic. And then you have, I think, video, obviously. I mean, this is what ShowHeroes does. This is what, to a certain extent, here, of course, this is big in video overall. If it be TV or digital, Dennis Publishing for sure is looking into opportunities as well. You know, so video is a big trend. And if you then look into the numbers saying that by 2021, more than 80%, 90% of the global internet traffic as a whole will be video traffic, that alone, you know, is a strong statement. So it makes for a trend that for sure can't be denied. And then if you look at where the revenue is coming from, I think video is one of the biggest drivers for programmatic, to be honest, you know. In the very early days, video revenues were traded more than 50, 60, 70% at a global scale, also especially in the US, programmatically. And one of the reasons is that it always used to be, coming from a TV background, as a standardized format, speaking about the VAF standard, for instance, you know. And that somehow is leading me to, I think, the third or the fourth, you know, trend that has emerged over the last couple of years, be it 5, be it 4, be it 3, that is, you know, transparency. I think that's a big, it's always a buzzword, transparency, brand safety, blah, blah, we all know that. But yeah, for sure. I mean, you can see that while looking at all the different companies that have emerged over the last couple of years, that do nothing but, you know, actually watch out for transparency on the behalf of advertisers, of users, and also of publishers. And it shows, if you talk about things like the VAST 4.012 standard, that viewability measurement, especially if you talk about video, but also if you talk about display advertising, it's a huge thing. And it goes in line with programmatic as a trend because, well, if you buy on KPIs solely, which you shouldn't do, but programmatic, especially in the early days, was very well known for, then at least you should buy on honest KPIs. And that's something that viewability standards, brand safety measurement standards can do for us. And therefore, you know, standards like VAS 4 and so on and so forth, and they can provide for that for sure. So yeah, I think it's programmatic, it's video, and it's transparency.
I think transparency is a great point, especially with, you know, with you're in the company of some really premium publishers. And I think that that's a key point that is really increasingly important to brands, definitely. And so I'm really keen to dig in a little bit more to how you're each using programmatic technology to innovate and to compete. I'd love to know how transparency comes into that as well. Alex, I can see you've taken yourself off. You've put video back on. Are you keen to, do you want to jump in first here?
Sure, I can. So for us, so we've been selling programmatic industry since back in, I think it was 2011, we started with our AdX setup. And in some ways, you know, we're still kind of plugging our inventory in and the open market responds to it because it's good quality inventory. But the way that we've done that has changed massively over the years. So, you know, we've got header bidding, we've got various different integrations. I won't go into that because that's pretty standard nowadays. But one thing I think is really key when it comes to selling our inventory is being really responsive to client needs. So we work really closely with both clients and our agency partners who are always after something new. Recently, they've been very, very keen to engage with us around first-party data, which makes sense because obviously the cookie is probably dying, however you want to say it. And we've actually done a lot of work even before the Chrome and the Safari announcements around building up our first-party data strategy through our data management platform. We work with Permutive. One of the reasons we went with them was because of being cookieless, but also the real-time piece. So we find that our advertisers really like being able to catch people at a particular point in the purchase funnel. We have a lot of intent-led segments. But, you know, going forward, we really want to work with clients around things like attribution. You know, third-party cookies dying isn't just going to impact identity, it's going to impact so many different things. So one of our key verticals is automotive, and automotive is heavily reliant on attribution modeling. So understanding the path to purchase from someone first engaged in wanting to buy a car to clicking on a test drive or brochure request to going to a dealership and buying that car. There's lots of different things, lots of different, you know, touch points that we feed into, and we cover quite a lot of them, especially considering we about 3 or 4 years ago bought a e-commerce motoring site called Buy Car. So we actually sell cars now, which is something obviously completely different that, you know, a traditional publisher would normally do. What that means for us is we're able to see those different touch points and we're able to package that up, and then, you know, we generally don't sell data outside of impressions, but we will engage with our clients in interesting ways for them to be able to access that on our site and off site. The kind of really exciting thing that we've done over the past few years, though, is we've actually started buying programmatic inventory. So we, for both our subscriptions business and our demand generation business, we actually, you know, go out and buy inventory on the wider web, acting as buyers ourselves, again, all completely based on our first-party data. So we will look to find key people that either work for particular businesses or are at key points in a purchase funnel that might actually be a purchase funnel to buy a subscription for ourselves for one of our magazines. And that's actually been a really, really interesting thing over the past few years to see it from the other side, because previously we were just selling. On your transparency point, as a premium publisher, we've always really tried to be completely transparent. We will be very clear with our clients exactly how we make a segment, what logic goes into it, all of the recency and frequencies and things like that. We've done that because we trust in the way that we've created our segments, and we're very happy to be clear about that. And we also know that if we are going to battle against, okay, third-party data in a year or so won't really mean much, but previously it has obviously been a massive part of the market, and it still is. So if I want a client to come to me and probably have to pay a little bit more than the 25 pence per thousand segment they're going to get on the open market, I have to prove to them and show to them why it's going to perform exponentially better. And part of that is that transparency piece. So really being clear on exactly what it is. And actually, we've seen some really, really good responses from our agencies and our clients in engaging with that, but also it then performs, and that's the key thing.
And that's so interesting to hear. I know in our pre-call, Ilhan, you were mentioning a little bit about your thoughts on contextual data and the work that you're doing there. I mean, when we talk about innovation in the programmatic space, how does that your approach to data tie in with that?
So we found, as a very, very contextually sorry.
Alex has said something, meaningful. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I thought they said,
no, sorry.
Alex.
I said Ilhan, but Alex, please, if you want to.
Oh, no, you go. I'm done. Sorry. Again.
Okay, you can chime in afterwards, maybe. Maybe it's the same we are doing.
Sorry.
We should be doing it together at some point in the future. Well, I guess what you were asking for, Cadi, is what we see a lot these days is the issues we have with the TCF 2.0 framework, right? I mean, that's the elephant in the room these days, and everything out there goes around that topic. We have the Gdpr compliance issues, and what we have to do, or we have to do as a co-publisher, if you will, of course, is in the first place, it's about consultancy. So we have to be a strong, structured partner for our publishing partners, just in order to make sure that after mid of August, there'll still be revenues in the pipeline because everyone is compliant. That's one. And number two, I think having that in mind is data for itself becomes more and more, I wouldn't necessarily say it's the new gold or oil or whatsoever. I would say to the contrary, the question is whether you really need the data to apply accurate targeting. And I think pre-targeting itself becomes more and more important. Like the buy side, for instance, is used to apply audience targeting old school style with a lot of cookies being dropped. And we know alongside with the new framework and all the content that's not being given in the first place, it's very difficult to do. So how can you ensure that you still target the right people at the right time on the right spot, doing the right things and expose them to the right ads, to meaningful, relevant ads in the end of the day. And I think semantic, as you just said it for yourself, can be one way to reach that goal. So what we usually try to do is to try to pre-target all our campaigns and deals as good as possible. And we try to make that accessible programmatically as well, right? So content that we own, websites that we can crawl, matches that we can make to create more relevance as far as video content and articles are concerned in a combined way, then would basically pave the way for a user who does not want to give consent for whatever may be justifiable reasons, but still can be qualified as an important user that, for instance, an automotive client or a fashion client wants to target, be it with performance or be it with brand advertising. And I think that made available through different programmatic pipelines is definitely one of the most upcoming trends and ways I see for the future if you really want to apply specific targeting at scale. And the numbers, right, if we look at comparison numbers, they basically prove me right. It's very obvious that precise semantic targeting and good dynamic creative optimization combined programmatically on an IO level, would also work. In the end of the day, they can basically achieve a lot for you if you are an advertiser. And you don't have to worry about GDPR that much anymore because everything is basically taking place on site, right? You don't need consent because you don't drop cookies. Very simple.
There is just so much change coming to this space with the with the death of the cookie that we can't. You have to continue to innovate. Alex, did you want to build on anything there?
I can't remember what point I was going to say. Sorry.
Don't worry. I'm really keen to hear from. I'm really keen to hear from Anas on this and Tefan's approach, because obviously, again, there's a lot of logged in users. So, you know, you're
Absolutely.
in a fortunate position with regard to first party.
Absolutely. So, you know, because before really talking about how we handle data and so on, I just wanted, you know, before to share with you how we approach programmatic at TF1. So, as you know, as a broadcaster, so we have a broadcaster mindset. So this is what it is. So it's the mindset of a broadcaster is about control. So for us, definitely programmatic is an opportunity, of course, but we want definitely to stay super cautious with programmatic. So we want to, I think that the fact that we are a broadcaster, the fact that with premium video content, we really want to have, you know, to control things and to have really less pressure in the sense of keeping most of all our inventory sales in-house to really definitely protect the true market value of our inventory, and moreover, and to mitigate data leakage. So this is the link. So so our mindset is, okay, programmatic is an opportunity, but it can be a threat sometimes because it's super complex. We know that we are premium. We know that we have the ability to capture, you know, a kind of the finest data, because if you want to have access to our content, mostly throughout our OTT services, you need to log in. So definitely we capture a huge amount of data. So for instance, we have more than 25 million users that are logged on our systems. So in terms of demographic, we have really a strong data. We have this premium content. It's sometimes an exclusive content. We can talk really about brand safety, and so that's why we really want to protect the way we approach programmatic. So it's really something that is really important in our strategy. So that's why, for instance, when we capture data, and when it's, of course, it's compliant and so on, we even if our clients can buy our inventories and our data as well, we built a kind of label called Sigma in France. So we built it with two other broadcasters in the French market in order to give the opportunity to our clients to have access to our data, but throughout really a thorough protocol. So we built it with two DSPs. So we worked with Adobe and with the Trade Desk. And if you want to buy our demographic data, programmatically speaking, you need to do it throughout this Sigma protocol. So we want to stay very protective with our inventories. We want to stay very protective with our data, because we definitely want to avoid any data leakage, because we know that our data is really a very valuable one. And for instance, in broadcasters in France, we don't do open auction, for instance. But so we're not going like from zero to hero overnight, but we want to keep protecting the way we approach programmatic. We will maybe open up open auction, but we will have like some limitation. We will have some constraints, because we want to do it with transparency and by controlling all the actions that we can have when it comes to programmatic. So this is how we approach it. I don't know if it's the best way, but we definitely, and we strongly believe that programmatic is an opportunity, but it's something that can be sometimes not really transparent, that it's sometimes something that can be really, really complex for our clients, and sometimes as a sell side actor in the business. So this is how we approach programmatic. This is how we approach data as well, and this is our mindset when it comes to programmatic in the in-stream area.
And it's super interesting, especially when you think about, when you were mentioning earlier, the progress you've made towards automation. I wanted
Absolutely.
to ask Alex this, actually, in terms of when you are, in a very different position, but similar in that you also have very valuable first-party data. When you are transacting programmatically, are you focusing more on guaranteed transactions on private marketplaces, in the same way that sort of Anas is describing for TF1?
Sure. So we find that our data sales or our data-led campaigns tend to be both direct and programmatic. At Dennis Publishing, we actually have managed to maintain, if not grow, our direct side of the business as well as our programmatic side of the business. So because it really depends on the audiences, because we've got so many different brands, that means that, we've got some audiences that scale really, really well and some that are really niche. And generally we try and take a consultative approach. So when a client comes to us with a particular brief, they're after a particular audience, we will potentially leverage a contextual play rather than an audience play, depending on if we've got a site that just really covers off that well. If it's really niche, if you're after a very specific job title or something like that, we would generally say do it PG or direct, because you're just not going to find that inventory programmatically. Well, you might find it programmatically, but obviously if there's a guarantee to it. What we do find though is that PMPs work really well, and obviously that mirrors slightly, well, doesn't necessarily mirror, but it might replicate more what they have been doing on the open auction. And we find kind of leveraging a mixture of contextual and audience personally works really well for us at Dennis because of our brands.
Yes. Yeah, fascinating where you do have such specific contextual content. Ilhan, I'm keen to hear from you, because both of the other panelists have mentioned collaboration. Alex, you talked about it as being a trend, and it was amazing to hear about the Sigma project on data. I mean, how at ShowHeroes, how are you collaborating in market, with competitors or other partners? Is it a priority?
We do nothing. No, it's not. I'm kidding, of course.
You got to talk about the union. You want to hear about this stuff.
No, of course, we love corporations. I mean, generally speaking, I think in the industry, it's that's the beauty of the media industry, I think, right? I mean, somehow we are all in this together, and somehow we all have the same enemies, if you will, or frenemies, because as users, we are like big fans and heavy users. Of course, I'm talking about Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube, right? So we all know them, we all use them, but as publishers, as vendors, as tech providers, as media buyers, we have our issues. And that in the media industry is somehow catering for the nice, frenemy situations that you are, more or less facing in every different market. And what we do in Europe these days, and particularly, is, or we actually have done it already, we have forged the union, which we launched in the beginning of this year, basically more or less directly into the lockdown in the UK, because it's UK based, and it was, kind of a bad timing, you can say. But then again, on the other hand, it's never a bad timing about, doing the right thing. And what we did here is basically we joined forces with a lot of like-minded companies that you could potentially consider competitors of ours, like ShowHeroes wise, on one or two different business angles. But in the end of the day, what we do as the union is we offer like scalable, brand safe, again, video supply all over the EMEA region, for especially London-based media buyers, from all the agencies, from other clients. And of course, this is taking place primarily programmatically. Also, we are targeting different hubs like the Netherlands, Amsterdam, France, Paris, but especially the UK, especially London, because, media buyers, they need to work with partners other than just YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, that can offer brand safe video supply on premium local websites at scale, isn't it? And that's something, I mean, there are different projects out there also in the UK, speaking about the Ozone project, for instance, that more or less go into the same direction, like for a market, like nationwide, if you will, or you have the Ad Alliance, and particularly in Germany, and so on and so forth. And we really try to take that to the next level in terms of video. So alongside with a couple of like-minded companies that are all based in different markets, like the Nordics or Italy and Spain, the eastern parts of Europe, and so on and so forth, we basically have joined forces and we offer everything out of the hand of one tech stack. And yeah, I guess this is how collaboration has to look like these days. If you don't want to be, always the second winner against the industry giant, but we have to work together somehow, all parties considered, if we really want to make a difference, and if we want to again deliver a sustainable product at scale that the clients, the advertisers, the users eventually can benefit from.
No, I think that collaborative approach, that sort of platforms-based approach, seems to be winning a lot of traction. So I'm hoping that continues to go well. I have one more question to ask the panel, and then we're going to switch over to Q&A from the audience. So just a reminder for anyone who's joined to pop their questions in the Q&A box now. But I'm really keen just to focus a little bit on what the future holds for each of your businesses, and we'll have a quick fire round almost in terms of what does the future hold. And that's, would you like to start?
Yeah, so thanks. Okay, of course. So the near future for us is definitely addressable TV. So we hope that it will be a reality in the next couple of months. So the way we're gonna sell it at the beginning will be like traditional way, will be direct sales. But we do believe that in the next couple of years, we want to have programmatic everywhere. So of course we will have programmatic on addressable TV, and this will be a huge milestone for TF1 and even for the French market. So this will be the major shift for a broadcaster as TF1. And the other challenge that we will need to face is a tech challenge, because we have now an ad serving and a supply side platform capabilities today, but we need to face this new addressable TV challenge. So we definitely need to think about what will be our tech futures, when it comes to addressable TV, especially when it will be available throughout programmatic. So we will face in the next couple of years some huge challenges in terms of sales, in terms of technology, even in terms of data, because addressable TV is again an opportunity for us to have access to data coming from our partners, which are the ISPs and the telco partners. So it will be like a new era for us. So definitely a big challenge in terms of data, big challenge in terms of ad stack and ad technology, a big challenge in terms of ad sales as well, because we need to have, in the next couple of years, we need to have this convergence between TV and between video. We want it to be really, we want it to be something which is real, and it's a big change for us, because systems that we are using for TV are not systems that we are using today for video. So we need to merge all the systems, and the fact that we are really big, it will challenge us a lot to make it really happen. So these are like the major challenges that we will see in the near future for TF1. And then in short term, so we just need to face this, of course, this crisis, and this COVID crisis is really challenging us, in the short term. So as I mentioned, for instance, open auction is not something that a broadcaster in France can definitely work on, but maybe in the next couple of weeks we will try to open up this new source of revenue. We're gonna, of course, in the near future, work on the programmatic guaranteed, because we talk a lot about programmatic guaranteed, but it's now reality for a bunch of DSPs, and it's now a reality when it comes to our ad stack. So we're using Freewheel. So in the near future, programmatic guaranteed is definitely an option for us, and it's really a way for us to shift the business we are doing on direct sales to programmatic guaranteed. But we need, again, as I mentioned, to control how this shift is gonna be in the future for us. So programmatic guaranteed is our near future, maybe up in auction. Of course, header bidding when it comes to in-stream will be something we're gonna dig into, because it's still not a reality in France, especially for in the broadcaster ecosystem and broadcaster business. Header the header bidding for in-stream is not really something that is really real, in overall in the French market. So we want to to take advantage of all these opportunities, and in the meantime try to build this convergence between linear TV and our digital assets.
Yeah, and I love that first point of really needing to have the right foundations to be able to then springboard into some of those more complex pieces.
Absolutely.
Alex, what does the future hold for Dennis?
So we've put a lot of work in over the past few years into building out our first party data strategy, which should hopefully hold us in really, really good stead for the future. It will allow us to be audience led, to understand across our breadth of different sites who our audience are, what they want from us, and obviously how we can deliver that in the best way. So that might be paywall and metering solutions and things like that in order to gather that data, and it could be other solutions. So with that foundation, I think we need to really brace ourselves and try and understand exactly how the browser changes are going to impact our revenue streams outside of just, pure play programmatic commercialization. It's going to have an impact across, as I mentioned, our attribution models, our e-commerce business, across multiple different parts of our revenue streams. So whilst we've done a lot of work to diversify our revenue streams to really protect them, I think we need to do some impact assessment and to really understand that. And I think the key thing is just being agile. This is something that Dennis has been really good at. Be agile, respond to market conditions, respond to what your clients want, and be quick off the mark, because, things are going to change. I always say this, things are going to change so quickly. We had no idea at the beginning of the year what was going to be braced, what was going to come this year. We have no idea what's going to happen next year. Let's just make sure we're on top of it, respond to it, and ultimately give our users a product that they want. And if we give them a product that we want, they will return. And so that's kind of the approach that we're taking.
I love that user first and user centric approach is so important. Ilhan, for you, what does the future hold for ShowHeroes?
Well, of course, we continue to grow, right? We are, as you said for yourself, still a comparably young company, like 4 years out there, growing a lot. So for us, international global expansion is a thing. And we are basically right in there these days while we are speaking, and that is for sure going to continue. But speaking about clearly what you were indicating, industry trends and where we see ourselves contributing, multi-screen, I think, is a big thing. We have focused on, we still do so, digital video from day one. But I think that the space of digital video is more and more somehow swapping over into ATV, CTV spheres, right? And especially from a programmatic point of view, it would make, from the buy side perspective, a lot of sense that at some point in time, in the most likely very far future ahead, you would, as a media buyer, would have had the chance to simply buy, video, like funnel-based advertising across all the different platforms, like through multi-screen. And that's something that we are working on. We just added ATV and CTV to our stack to make that accessible. But then, of course, you run into problems if it comes to semantic targeting, for instance, that you can't just easily apply to a set-top box or to a TV, just as you can apply it to these days, you know, a website with content. So, of course, that holds a couple of different challenges. But I really think that this is something that the future should, you know, at some point in time, offer solutions for, because, yeah, I mean, this is true multi-screen. And I really want to be capable of actually applying targeting, again, to the different steps in the funnel, right? Do I want to basically launch a huge awareness campaign, or is it a performance campaign? And that should be in the center of my marketing deliberations, and not necessarily, okay, what platform do I need in order to get there? Because there will always be intersections. And yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, again, as I said, you know, it's not that easy to solve. We are working on that. We're testing waters, but like true multi-screen, like video across all the different formats is for sure something that ShowHeroes will work more on in the future.
I love to hear a theme coming up again and again, and that theme of convergence is really interesting. So I'm going to pull up here the questions from the audience. And so, Alex, the first question is directed specifically to you. So how would you go about proving to a client that a first-party segment is more accurate than a third-party segment? And would you use propensity modeling to boost your segment size? Are you happy to?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Great question.
I suppose you can't really prove that, because you're proving a known against an unknown, right? But that's essentially the point. So I would say to a buyer, I would say to them, well, I will show you my segment. And of course, you know, I could be making it up. I'm not, but I could be. But there is a certain amount of trust going on here until we get to standardization, which is hopefully something that we will do. So I would show them how I've created it, exactly what data points that have fed in, the recency, the frequencies, the sites, all of that information, and I would be transparent. And then on the other side, they've got a third-party data segment that is a question mark. There might be some data in there somewhere that made some sense at one point, but you don't know that. You don't know exactly where it's coming from, you know, unless there's you know, some second party data going on there, but that's not really what we're talking about. So the whole idea is that one party is willing to be transparent and the other by nature isn't. So we kind of put that to our clients, but the real proof is in the pudding, to use the phrase, in the performance. So, and I've tried this myself through buying on the open market. You know, I can buy in market for car segment really, really cheaply, massive scale, but the likelihood is that segment is created from one page view 6 months ago, and that person's already purchased that product and they've moved on. So what we find is that proof comes from the way that it then performs when you actually run the campaign. And we do test our segments before we sell them. So we'll create a segment and run various different house campaigns or optimization campaigns to understand that, how they're performing, and then we'll go to clients with them. On the lookalike or propensity modeling, we do a little bit, but not that much. I'm of the opinion that a little bit of data that works is better than a lot that doesn't. Appreciate it'll be different for different, you know, because a lot of our data is quite niche. It's quite difficult to make a very, very niche data segment scale. It's never going to scale, and it shouldn't scale, and you should have confidence for it to be a niche segment. Obviously, lookaliking tends to work better on the big segments, but then the big segments you don't really need to look alike. So personally, we don't do it at Dennis that much. It is something that we're looking into. If we can get it to work and deliver, you know, good results for our clients, then we will do it in the future.
Oh, great. Thanks for answering so thoroughly. I'm going to give you a 2-minute pause, because I think actually the second question is also probably most relevant for you as well. So I'm going to jump to the third one, but which is, but I will come back to it. So
okay.
What is the biggest challenge that each of you face with your programmatic stack? And for those of you who are multi-market, does it vary by country? Ilhan, do you want to speak to your stack challenges?
The last one, that is, right? the biggest challenge? Yeah. I mean, first of all, the question is, what is a programmatic stack, right? It depends how you consider that. Like for us, for instance, basically means that we have an in-house and a third-party ad server, that we have a couple of different programmatic holistic engines that are attached to our own layers, our own reporting system, and so on and so forth. So I think stack is a very broad term. I think it's not very common that someone is solely relying on one stack without adding anything for yourself. And I also wouldn't recommend it for obvious reasons. With that being said, doesn't vary by country. I mean, what for sure varies by country is the power and the market penetration level of different SSPs, right? That is for sure. I mean, we are active all over Europe. And I mean, as Anna said for himself, I mean, Freewheel is a big one in France, right? This is why TF1 is working. Obviously, they are strong in broadcasting, so there is a close relationship, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And then you have Smart Ad Server, very strong in France. We're working with them as well. And yeah, I mean, you have, of course, at Nexus or, Xandr these days, which is strong across all markets to a certain extent. And then there is Google, I mean, for sure, also pretty well known and strong across multiple markets. But then you have like Rubicon or the Pubmatics or the SpotX's and so on and so forth. And they all have different strengths and weaknesses on different formats across different markets. And what we can see as a kind of a meta publisher or co-publisher is when we have to, and this is why I'm picking up this term programmatic stack, we have to work with all of them to basically cater for our audiences and clients' needs in the particular markets. Because if we simply go for one full stack solution without working adaptively, it would be missing out of a lot of opportunities. And that would be us not fulfilling our promise towards our partners that are publishers and advertisers alike, right? So in a nutshell, long story short, I think technically speaking, and I think we also talked about that, Cadi, in our previous conversation, I don't consider those stacks to be very different. I consider most of the tier one players out there in the game to be solid and good enough to actually deliver what they promise. But then again, it comes down to the fact whether someone has a strong market penetration, which means people on the ground, strong marketing leverage, and that will eventually make the difference between different tech providers and SSPs. It would be a very naive call to say that, I don't know, just putting random names, SpotX has a better tech stack than Smart. That's simply not true. I mean, it's simply not true, right? And vice versa may not be true either. So it comes down to the fact whether they have a strong presence in a market and are willing to invest into a market. I think to me, it's still people's business in the end of the day, as long as you do your homework on a technical layer, and most of the big players, they do.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing so transparently there. Who should I go to next? And that's what we heard a little bit about. You mentioned Freewheel previously, but what's been the sort of biggest challenge that you've faced within your putting together your stack? Yeah, of course. So really, for us, again, short-term challenge is to have a unified yield. This is the most critical stuff we need to handle. So using our stack, we have this capability today, and this is our focus. So we need to have and we need to experience, because we just had a migration. So we used to have an unorthodox setup before. We used to, it's a brilliant word. Yeah, of course. So we used to have the same stack, but you used to have an ad server here, an SSP there. Now we have now a new tool, which is a merger between the ad server and the SSP, and now we have the ability to yield all the sources of demand that we have, so mostly direct sales and programmatic sales. So this is our focus. The fact is that we are now handling this crisis, so we know that the demand is not that high if you compare it to the demand we used to have before this sad crisis. But
in the next couple of months, once we will have this V-shaped recovery, we hope to focus on this unified yield, and this is the thing that we want to focus on in the next couple of months. But in the long term, as I mentioned, the day we will need to ad serve our addressable TV campaigns and so on, we definitely need to have an ad server that can handle and process a huge really amount and concurrent volumes with the same break management expectation, as linear is really key for both a broadcaster and an advertiser. So we definitely need in long terms to have a strong ad server, because we're going to handle a huge amount of ad breaks, and we're going to need to handle ad breaks coming from TV. So we need to have something which is definitely solid, strong, and something that can even more than that handle addressable TV in a programmatic way. So again, big challenges, but definitely exciting challenges.
Yes, yeah, it's a very exciting time. And Alex, you mentioned your setup being a little different in that you're buying as well as selling. Like, what's the biggest challenge that you've faced in putting together your stack?
So buying wise, it's been quite hard to get the data out from the systems that we exactly want. Obviously, we do pride ourselves on transparency, so we want to make sure that we are being completely transparent about where we're buying and obviously passing that on to our clients. On the selling side, the biggest, being multi-brand, anything that revolves dev work, can be quite difficult to scale across our setup. But I'd say the biggest hardship we've had is pulling in all the data from all the different partners into one central place. When I'm looking at optimizations and things like that, or I'm looking at my total revenue, I don't really care if it comes from one partner or another. I want to know top level exactly what I'm getting. Actually, just the logistics of tying that all together has taken quite a few years to get to a really good point where it's all very clear and in real time. But we are there now, thankfully, which is great. Yeah.
Brilliant. Wait, and actually, if I can stay with you for a moment, I promise we would come back to that second question. I think we've just got time to answer it now. But would you be able to talk to the differences you see between programmatic in Europe versus North America?
Sure. So there's two kind of key things that spring to mind quickly. So obviously, on the one hand, you've got legislation. So Europe, we have GDPR. America, they have CCPA and potentially some other things coming in at a state level, which will make a potentially confusing landscape even more confusing. So just the nuances of those different setups have meant that we have had to obviously take a different approach. But the other thing that I've noted about since we've got some brands out in the States now is just the sheer scale of them. So, our sites in America dwarf our UK sites just by nature. They're actually not even necessarily massive brands, but what I mean is they are just so huge just by nature of being American. And what we find is actually that scale is obviously there for our inventory, but it's also there for when you're on the ground. So, my experience is working in London. If you're in London, you can walk 10 minutes one way to go to one agency, 10 minutes another way to go to another agency, and you're right there. You've got your tech partners next to you. In America, someone might be based in San Francisco, someone else might be based in New York. You've got time differences. Now, obviously, COVID is potentially a great leveler for that because we're now all at home, but just being able to reach out to the right people is just so much easier in the UK, that I found anyway. But actually, a lot of the issues that you have are relatively similar, and a lot of the solutions can be the same as well.
Really fascinating. Well, thank you. I'm trying to see, how do I get rid of this box? Thank you for answering that, and thank you to all of the panelists for sharing with us so openly today. I think I've certainly learnt a lot from this call, and I'm going to hand back now to Paul, who I think is going to just tell us a little bit about the next session that we have coming up in our series of Beeswax webinars.
Yeah, so the next session is going to be 15 minutes with Beeswax, I don't know if any of you have attended any of those, but they're quick, bite-sized segments that enable you to learn a little bit about a topic. Oftentimes they do touch on the specific features or product features and benefits of Beeswax, but not always. And this next one is going to be a 15 minutes with Beeswax, basic optimization tactics. And that's being hosted by our very own programmatic trading specialist, Hannah Cooper. So I'll go ahead and circulate that. That's going to be on June 18th at this same time. We generally have these sessions at around the same time. So once again, that's in 2 days. So that would be Thursday, June 18th. And if you can stand by for just a second, I will send that to everybody who is attending the webinar now via the chat feature. But once again, I want to thank everyone who's joined. I want to thank Cadi for hosting and all of our wonderful panelists for making their time available and speaking so candidly about the industry. Let me just go ahead and send that. So that is to register for our next one. So we hope to see you there. We hope everybody's staying healthy and safe, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.